My sister stole what my parents meant for me after they died, then had the nerve to call me ungrateful when I confronted her. Here's what really happened. My sister forged my parents' will to steal my inheritance, and when I found out, she called me ungrateful. She didn't just take the money. She took everything and blamed me for noticing. Growing up, my older sister, Rachel, always had a way of making herself the center of attention. She wasn't loud or aggressive. She was strategic. She knew exactly how to manipulate our parents, charm relatives, and make herself look like the golden child while quietly shoving blame and responsibility onto me. Even so, I never hated her. I admired her in a way. I thought she was smart and resourceful, maybe too smart. My parents were middle-class folks who worked hard their entire lives. They weren't rich, but they were generous. They always told us they wanted to leave something behind for us when they were gone, so we wouldn't have to struggle the way they did. My mom was a teacher, and my dad worked construction. They lived simply, saved consistently, and when they both passed away, within 2 years of each other, it was devastating. But what came afterward was worse. The day after my mom's funeral, Rachel took charge of everything, arranging the lawyer meeting, the paperwork, the estate. I didn't question it. I was still grieving, and honestly, I thought she was trying to help. Then the lawyer looked confused when I asked about the will. He said, "What do you mean?" "Rachel's the sole inheritor. That's what your mother and father instructed in the revised will filed last year." I felt my stomach drop. Revised will? Sole inheritor? That didn't make any sense. Our parents always emphasized fairness. They made it clear that everything, savings, the house, retirement accounts, would be split 50-50ths. When I confronted Rachel about it, she shrugged. Mom changed her mind. She said you weren't really around that much lately. And Dad agreed. Besides, you're doing fine. You have a job, a place, no kids. You don't need it like I do. I was speechless. I wasn't doing fine. I had just gone through a divorce. I was paying off debt. I had barely enough savings to get through a few months if things went south. Meanwhile, Rachel had 3 kids and a husband who barely worked. They were always behind on rent, and my parents had constantly bailed them out over the years. But the kicker? She looked at me and said, "You should be grateful they left anything at all. It's not like you were that involved in their lives anyway." That's when it hit me. She'd planned this. She knew they would leave something behind, and she worked them over, made them feel guilty, probably even fake being desperate. I started digging. I called our parents' close friends. I went through old emails. I found a copy of the original will in my dad's locked desk drawer, which hadn't been cleared out yet. It clearly said 50-50ths. Rachel had forged a new one. She committed fraud and then had the audacity to make me feel guilty for questioning her. She even texted me later, "You're being selfish. Don't let money ruin the last shred of our relationship." No, she had already done that. I couldn't sleep after I found that copy of the original will. It felt like the floor had been pulled out from under me. All those family dinners, holiday photos, phone calls, suddenly it didn't feel like memories anymore. They felt like lies. Carefully constructed moments to disguise what Rachel had really been doing, setting the stage to take everything. But the most disturbing part? I started remembering things, small things that, at the time, didn't seem important. Like how she started visiting our parents more often in the year before Mom died. How she insisted on handling their bills and setting up online accounts for them to make things easier. How she always diverted conversations away from financial topics when I visited. And now it all made sense. She'd been isolating them, controlling their access to information, slowly painting me as the distant one while making herself look like the savior. I wasn't just angry. I was betrayed on a level I didn't know was possible. I knew I couldn't let this go. I scheduled another meeting with the estate attorney. I showed him the original will I'd found. His expression changed immediately. This changes things. If this will is authentic, and it looks like it is, it supersedes the revision. But I'll have to verify the signatures, the dates, and look into who filed the new version. If it was fraudulently submitted, there are serious consequences. Serious consequences. Those words rang in my ears like justice finally clearing its throat. In the days that followed, things unraveled faster than I expected. The lawyer uncovered discrepancies, documents filed without a witness, timestamps that didn't match, and most damning of all, a notary public who admitted that Rachel had asked them to just sign something as a favor without ever being present with our mother. The entire revision was a scam. But when I confronted Rachel with this, hoping for some kind of confession or, at the very least, remorse, what I got instead was worse than denial. She laughed. "Are you seriously doing this over money? After everything I've done for this family? After I took care of Mom while you were off finding yourself?" I was stunned. She wasn't even trying to pretend anymore. She looked at me like I was pathetic, like I was a threat to her perfect little scheme. "You always had it easy. You got the grades, the scholarships, the praise. I had to fight for every scrap of attention. And now you want to fight me over a few $1,000s and a house you weren't even planning to live in." It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the principle. It was about our parents' wishes, about their trust, about decency. And Rachel had violated all of it. I walked away that night with fire in my chest. I wasn't going to argue anymore. I wasn't going to beg for what was rightfully mine. I was going to let the law speak for me. Within a few weeks, the attorney filed a petition to challenge the fraudulent will. Rachel was served. I expected her to deny, to fight, but what I didn't expect was her next move. She started a campaign to ruin my reputation. She told family members I was suing her for attention. She painted herself as the single mom under attack by her bitter, greedy sister. She even made posts on Facebook, public ones, about how she was being abused emotionally by someone who was supposed to be family. People started messaging me, some sympathetic, others asking why I was doing this to Rachel when she had so much on her plate. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just fighting for my inheritance. I was fighting for my truth. Because Rachel had always been good at playing the victim. But not this time. The first court date was scheduled for early November. I remember staring at the calendar on my kitchen wall, wondering how everything had unraveled so quickly. Just 6 months earlier, I thought my sister and I had a decent, if distant, relationship. Now, we were preparing to face each other in a courtroom over our parents' legacy. My stomach was in knots for weeks. Not because I doubted the truth, but because I knew how good Rachel was at performance. I had seen her spin lies with the ease of someone adjusting her lipstick in a mirror. I couldn't let her rewrite history again. Not this time. But I wasn't alone anymore. After Rachel's smear campaign on social media, something unexpected happened. My cousin Leah, who had remained neutral for years, messaged me. "I've kept quiet because I didn't want to take sides, but I need you to know something." She told me that Rachel had approached her a year before our mother's death, asking if she knew any notaries willing to keep things off the record. Leah had said no, but the conversation stuck with her. She never mentioned it until now, until it became clear I wasn't being dramatic. I was exposing something real. Other family members slowly reached out too. Not everyone believed Rachel's version. Some had seen cracks in the facade for years, but didn't want to get involved. Now that the truth was coming to light, they started offering their support, emails, memories, even text messages they'd exchanged with Rachel during the time she was taking care of our mom. One thread in particular stopped me cold. It was a message from Rachel to our uncle, saying, "She's not going to fight me. She never has the guts. I'll just get it signed and done before she even notices." Proof. Clear, arrogant proof. The morning of the hearing, I sat outside the courthouse in my car, gripping the steering wheel. Part of me still hoped Rachel would call, maybe to apologize, maybe to offer to make it right. But deep down, I knew that version of my sister didn't exist anymore. Maybe she never had. Inside the courtroom, everything felt sterile, clean, neutral. But the tension between us crackled like electricity in the air. Rachel wore a somber outfit, her makeup perfect. She clutched a tissue like she'd rehearsed this role before. Grieving daughter, victimized sister. But as soon as my lawyer began presenting the evidence, her expression changed. The notary's sworn statement, the mismatched dates, the lack of required witness signatures, the original will, the text messages. One by one, the lies she'd carefully stacked began to wobble, then collapse. And the judge didn't hold back. This court finds significant inconsistencies that suggest willful misrepresentation. There appears to have been an effort to manipulate the estate in a manner that contradicts the decedent's documented wishes. Rachel didn't cry. She didn't even speak. She just stared forward as if frozen, her jaw clenched so tightly I thought it might crack. The judge ordered that the original will be honored. The estate was to be redistributed accordingly. Rachel was also ordered to repay a portion of the funds she'd already withdrawn, and, pending further investigation, she could be facing criminal charges for fraud. But despite the victory, I didn't feel triumphant. I walked out of that courtroom not with pride, but with grief. Because the person I'd grown up with, shared bunk beds with whispered secrets to under the blankets at night, was gone. Not because of death, but because of greed. I didn't win. I simply survived a betrayal I never saw coming. They say that after justice is served, there's peace. But no one tells you that sometimes peace feels a lot like emptiness. After the ruling, I returned to a home that still smelled like silence. My lawyer had congratulated me. Friends sent texts saying, "I'm so glad you stood up for yourself." And I was. I was glad I hadn't let Rachel rewrite my mother's final wishes. I was glad I'd defended myself. But I was also exhausted. Not just physically, but emotionally worn down in a way I couldn't put into words. The kind of fatigue that seeps into your bones when someone close to you deliberately chooses to hurt you and never once looks back. I didn't hear from Rachel for 2 months. Then, out of nowhere, I received a voicemail from an unknown number. It was her. "I hope you're happy now. You made me look like a criminal in front of everyone. I just wanted to take care of what Mom left behind, and you turned it into a war." No apology. No recognition of what she had done. Just blame. Still clinging to the victim role. Still insisting that I had gone too far by defending myself. I didn't respond. But she didn't stop there. She started calling my workplace, trying to check in with me. She emailed family members with long-winded explanations that painted herself as misunderstood and heartbroken. One email even said, "She always hated that I was the favorite. That's what this is really about. Not Mom's will. Just jealousy." I laughed out loud when I read that. Dry, bitter laughter. Jealousy? I never wanted to be the favorite. I just wanted fairness and honesty. But to her, those things didn't matter. The only thing that did was control. Eventually, she sent me a letter. A real, handwritten letter. It smelled like her perfume, Chanel No. 5. The same perfume our mother wore. I wasn't sure if it was intentional, but it made my hands shake. The letter started with, "I hope you'll read this with an open heart," and ended with, "Families fight, but they always find their way back." That was it. No mention of stealing. No mention of forging a will. No mention of years of manipulation. Just a soft appeal for me to move on, to forgive and forget, to pretend she hadn't nearly destroyed my life for the sake of getting a little more money. I stared at that letter for hours, not because I was torn about what to do, but because it was the clearest confirmation I'd ever received. She didn't feel sorry. She just didn't want to be the villain. I didn't reply. Instead, I took the letter, sealed it in an envelope, and tucked it into a box in my closet labeled Proof. Because one day, if anyone ever doubts my story, or if Rachel tries to twist it again, I'll have the trail. The texts, the emails, the voicemail, and this letter. Some people think forgiveness is about making peace with others. But I've learned it's about making peace with yourself. I've accepted that my sister is who she is. I've accepted that I can't fix her. I've accepted that family, no matter how close they are in blood, can still choose to be strangers. The healing doesn't come in a dramatic final confrontation. It comes in the quiet moments. When I stand in my garden and remember my mother's laughter. When I look at the restored family photos I almost deleted out of anger. When I realize I'm not carrying Rachel's weight anymore. She can keep her lies. I'll keep my integrity. And honestly, that's worth more than any inheritance. It's strange how the most defining moments of our lives don't always come with fireworks or some grand cinematic closure. Sometimes they come quietly, like standing in your childhood home and realizing you'll never walk those halls the same way again. It had been 6 months since the court case ended, and almost 4 since Rachel sent that final letter. I hadn't replied. I hadn't even mentioned it to the few family members still talking to me. Some were silent. Others were awkward, caught between loyalty and discomfort. And a few, just a few, actually told me, "You did the right thing." But right doesn't always feel good. Justice doesn't always feel like victory. There's a strange grief that comes with watching someone you love willingly fall from grace. Because no matter how cruel Rachel was, there was still a piece of me that remembered sharing a bunk bed with her when we were kids, sharing secrets under the covers, whispering about boys and monsters, fighting over clothes, and hugging it out minutes later. I don't miss the person she became, but I still mourn the person I thought she was. It's not an easy thing to admit. People want these stories to end cleanly, with the villain exposed and the hero walking into the sunset, stronger and wiser. But real life is messy, eh? Pain lingers. Doubt creeps in. Sometimes I still ask myself, could I have handled it differently? Should I have just let it go for the sake of peace? Did I make things worse? And then I remember. I remember the forged documents. The smug look on her face when she thought she'd won. The coldness in her voice when she told me I was being ungrateful. Ungrateful for asking for what my mother wanted for me. No, I didn't make things worse. I drew a line. I stood up. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't let her, or anyone else, make me feel small for doing it. Today, the house is in my name. I don't live there full time, but I visit. I keep it up. I tend the garden, clean the kitchen, sit on the porch where Mom used to drink tea and read. It's not just a house. It's a legacy, a promise. Mom worked 2 jobs for most of her life to make sure we were taken care of. She wanted us both to have a future. She believed in fairness. She believed in family. I think if she were alive, she'd be heartbroken to see how things turned out between me and Rachel. But I also think she'd be proud of me. Proud that I didn't let manipulation win. Proud that I honored her real wishes. Proud that I didn't let grief make me weak or blind. I still don't know if Rachel will ever come to terms with what she did, if she'll ever own it, or if she's too far gone down the path of denial and pride. But I've learned that her healing, if she ever chooses it, is not my responsibility. I'm not her caretaker. I'm not her punching bag. I'm not her scapegoat anymore. I'm just me, standing on my own, wounded but whole. I hope one day she finds peace. But even if she doesn't, I've made peace with myself. And that, more than anything she could have taken from me, is what I now treasure the most.